Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Kid Stays in the Podcast. I'm your host, Trey Cooper, and joining me today is...
Moose Solomon Cooper.
What?
Musa Solomon Cooper.
I don't even understand it.
Mussolini.
Oh, God. That was absolute trash. You sounded like Jar Jar Binks.
Musa Solomon Cooper.
Anyway, joining me today, as always, is Solomon Cooper, and we are going to be discussing Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo. I can't say his name.
Guillermo.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Woo.
This is a crazy year for Pinocchio movies.
What?
We've had two Pinocchio movies in the same year, within like 6 months of each other.
Have we?
Yes, Disney remade their Pinocchio movie. Robert Zemeckis directed it, starring Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks is Geppetto.
Okay.
And it's a live action adaptation. It crashed and burned. It got terrible reviews. It looks really weird. The Pinocchio, the live action Pinocchio puppet, looks exactly like the Disney Pinocchio from the cartoon.
That's cool.
It's weird. It looks bizarre. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to pass judgment, but like I said, it got terrible reviews and it pretty much tanked. And now we have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Guillermo.
Whatever, I'm going to keep pronouncing it vaguely wrong. And this is for those of you not familiar, a stop animated film. So it's not live action and it's not CGI. You know, I'm just going to go through all the animation styles that it isn't.
Okay, go. How many animation styles can you name?
I'm not going to even play that.
Two.
No, you always are trying to get us sidetracked to not talk about the movie because you probably haven't written any notes or did anything with your brain.
Yeah, I actually just actively go out of my way to not use my brain.
This was not necessarily something that I thought I wanted to watch. I was interested because it got great reviews and everybody was saying it was a masterpiece. I mean, people were saying things like, movies like this is why cinema was invented, like that kind of...
Really?
Yes, that kind of breathless hyperbole. But I will have to say, maybe not hyperbole after all.
Amen is what I'm going to start saying.
Yeah. Also, we've all seen Pinocchio a billion times. We've seen a ton of different adaptations of it. You know, I just couldn't imagine any way to make it fresh. How good could a
Pinocchio movie be?
How fresh could it be?
Amen.
The answer is very, very fresh.
Yes. Certified fresh.
Well past certified fresh. I think it has like a 98 or something.
It goes past certified fresh?
Well, I mean, certified fresh, you need to have like a 65 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that was just a regular tomato.
No, if it's positive, it's just certified fresh. Is that not right?
No, I thought it was a rotten tomato and then a tomato and then a certified fresh tomato.
Well, I think that certified fresh, it doesn't have to be in the 90s.
I thought it did.
No, it doesn't.
Maybe 80s.
And either way, why don't you walk us through, not the plot, everybody knows the plot of Pinocchio, and even though I say this movie is very fresh, for the most part, the spine of the Pinocchio story is still the same. It's the way that the individual beats and moments getting there. So why don't you just talk us through the opening of this movie and why you immediately know this is not going to be like any Pinocchio story you've seen before?
Okay, yeah, I can do that. I can just describe an opening to you, right? That's all I want. That's all, and I can be spoilers.
Yeah, this is going to be spoilers. I mean, it's a Pinocchio movie, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yep, okay. So
but I'm not saying go beat by beat. I'm just saying
I know.
To let us know what was different about this when you knew.
So basically, we just watched Geppetto and his son live his life, and it's getting narrated the whole time by Ewan McGregor. And
see how you're already losing me.
I'm not losing you.
No, I already want to throw a football at your head.
Yeah, so him. So
why does it matter that it's getting narrated by somebody?
I can't hear you. Geppetto and his son are just living their lives, and because Geppetto's a wood maker.
He's a wood maker. He makes wood.
He's a carpenter. Something
like that, yeah.
Oh, and it's just showing what is it called? It's like a like a montage.
But it isn't. I knew what word you're looking for, but it isn't a montage.
There is a montage in there at some point of his life with his son and him, and you really get to bond with the characters and Carlo, his son, and eventually we go to the church where they're making a big giant wooden Jesus.
So I actually would say that you are purposely, or maybe not purposely, maybe you're just obtuse in what you're choosing to skip over here.
Was it the very, 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 very beginning?
That's fine. But I will say that another thing that made you realize this is not a normal Pinocchio is them building this giant Jesus. It's a huge crucifix with Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
But nails, I mean, full on Catholic crucifix. So first of all, incredibly religious, like iconic religious imagery that you would not normally find in an animated film. Have you seen, I mean, with the exception of like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, you know what I mean, where the Catholic Church is a huge part of it. I'm not saying that there's not religious figures, but you don't normally see a big giant, 30-foot tall bleeding Jesus statue.
That's true. They are painting blood onto the crown of thorns.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic Jesus, or classic Catholic crucifix, which always has the bloody Jesus on it.
Yeah.
But the part, I don't understand why you're skipping the part that this movie starts off with Geppetto having a son. You're just like casually mentioning that, like every Pinocchio movie has that. You know this movie's going to be dark from the minute you see his son, because we know that at some point in this movie, he has to make a son that's Pinocchio. So instead, you're just telling us the beginning of the movie with bypassing the whole reason I was asking you to do that.
No, it could be like he wanted his son to have a brother made of wood.
That's not the story of Pinocchio. We know that.
We don't know that. That's why we could have thought this was a new movie.
Oh,
this is new and fresh.
Why do I even ask you to try and contribute?
Well, are we going to finish this off?
I think that you should move behind the couch and put that potted plant there, and I'll just have a conversation with it.
He's not even alive.
Well,
he's not even a real boy, like me.
Anyway, what's the point in you continuing? We already know what's going to happen.
But this is really brutal.
Okay, go ahead.
So then we're in the church. We're about to leave, and Geppetto leaves because it's like we hear like airplanes, and it's like, okay, we have to go home. And so they're about to leave. His son forgets something, and
his son forgets a pine cone.
Yes, I know, but I didn't want to. Whatever. And then airplanes drop bombs, and a missile. Is it a missile? Just a bomb?
It's a bomb.
A bomb falls and flies directly into the church, blows up the whole church, and then all that happens is a pine cone flies out into Geppetto, or at Geppetto, and that's all he sees left of his son is a pine cone.
Yes, so his son gets blowed up really quickly.
And it was really brutal. And the worst part is that we learn like 5 seconds afterwards is that they weren't even trying to bomb that little town. They were just trying to like lose some weight for their airplanes.
Lose some weight for their airplanes?
Yeah. For balance or whatever.
I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong with this case, but I'm pretty sure that that everybody who dies due to bombing, which it is more than one person. There's multiple bombings in this Pinocchio movie.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It takes place during World War II, I believe.
Yes.
And the interesting thing is that all of our characters are Italians in the middle of Italy being incredibly fascist as they're part of the Axis powers under Mussolini.
More like Axis.
Mussolini, who, by the way, oh my God. Mussolini, who actually makes an appearance in this movie. Again, if you didn't think that this movie was going to go there, it always will. Everything that you think it might not do, it's going to...
Just because it's an animated movie?
Yeah, it's going to do it. But...
that's why my name was Solomon.
Yeah, we got it. And we want to forget about it.
Okay.
The nihilism, I guess you would say, is that... Maybe nihilism's the wrong word. Well, maybe not. I'm just going to argue with myself. But in that scene where they blow up the church, not only do we find out that they weren't even trying to bomb that town. They were, like you said, they were just trying to lighten the load on their planes on the way back from a sortie. So they just were releasing them like you'd release ballast. And they accidentally did it over a town that they didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
So double meaningless death. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And on top of that, everybody who's getting killed because they're all in Italy, including all of our friends and our protagonists, are getting hurt by these bombs. It's all from the Allies. You know what I mean? Because Italy was the bad guys.
That's true.
So and they're not trying to do a both sidesism thing. They're not trying to say, well, look how bad the Allies were or anything like that. It's just the facts on the ground. Yeah. But this is a movie that uses the Pinocchio story as a spine, like I said, but it's about a lot deeper things than just Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Like, or just than the original Pinocchio story, which the general idea was like, don't lie and obey your dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of the thing. This movie is not just interested in that being the theme. This is a movie about fascism, about what fascism does to a country, about what it does to relationships, to some extent, even what it does to religion.
Yep.
It's really hard for me to,
and more than just fascism, it's not like that. It's just like about life in general, like, and what your life is and how your life is valued.
Yes, I mean, and at the end of the day, it still is a movie about fathers and sons.
Yeah.
It just goes much deeper into it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, so in this movie, after his son dies, Geppetto goes into a horrendous state of grief, and he
starts drinking.
He's like drunk, like
constantly,
obliterated, always drunk. He's like the town drunk now.
Yeah.
And he plants the pine cone at his son's grave, and then one day in a fit of grief, he cuts the tree down that grew from it over his son's grave, the pine tree, and that's what he uses to carve Pinocchio.
Yes.
And in a very fun, clever twist, this is how we are introduced to who most people know from the Disney movie as Jiminy Cricket, but that's not really what his name is.
His name was like Sebastian J. Cricket.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So he has just found what he thinks is his forever home in this tree, and the little place.
And he's like a writer.
He's a writer.
He's trying to write his big novel.
Pardon me.
You're good.
Whenever he's like I said, he thinks he found his forever home, but then Geppetto cuts the tree down, but the little hole that he was living in the tree ends up being the part that's molded into Pinocchio's chest.
Yep.
Which I thought was a really clever thing, since he's always known as his conscience in the Disney version. Mm-hmm. And they don't ever say that in this. They do say he needs to guide him and help him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that he actually lives
directly in his heart.
In his chest. So yeah, and when he makes Pinocchio, this is not like the fun Disney version at all, where it's like, oh, I la 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 la. No,
this was like Frankenstein. Like this was like creating a monster, and like lightning's flashing over his shadow.
Yeah, he's like grabbing axes, he's hacking wood, he's sawing it. They're making it feel as violent an act as possible. Mm-hmm. And there is no blue fairy in this. There's a forest spirit.
Yep,
it's creepy
wood spirit.
Yep, and in classic Del Toro design, it has eyeballs all over its wings. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, Pinocchio comes to life. Blah blah blah. We don't need to go through all the things, but so a couple of the differences that I want to touch on. One of the biggest ones is they allow Geppetto to be a flawed, even broken person, mm-hmm. who is a flawed and often broken father to Pinocchio. And they also let Pinocchio be a kind of a little a-hole. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But he has a certain guileless charm as an innocent. Like, he seems so innocent about everything that you're not really mad at him.
Yeah, you just feel like it's like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Like, it's like, okay, it just feels like you need to teach him.
Yeah,
it feels like a baby, but smarter.
Right, and it's almost like they're not trying to show that he's equally as broken and bad. It's more that you can understand as an adult, or even I know you're not an adult, but like you can understand why they would be mad at him.
Yeah,
does that make sense? Mm-hmm.
I have a 6-year-old brother.
Yeah, well, We don't have to bring him up in the podcast and talk
What do you
bad about
mean?
it. I don't think you need to talk bad about your brother.
I'm not talking about bad about my brother.
Oh,
I was just saying, like, I can understand. I've been, as someone who raises a child.
Well, look, we're at time. When we come back, I want you to kind of dive into some of the themes that more into some of the themes that this movie is getting into once we get Pinocchio out of the house, because then it starts getting really bananas. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And now, a word from our sponsors.
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a one-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
What are we doing here, Rusty? What are we going to do?
Yep, we're doing the King of the Hill Rewatch Podcast.
King of the Hill Rewatch Podcast. Yeah, so we're going to go through one episode at a time. Come along for the ride with us.
Come check it out.
And give me a good like Dale Gribble quote to go out on. Wingo!
Yeah, Wingo.
Wingo! All right, well, join us for the King of the Hill Rewatch Podcast.
Deep in the heart of Texas, that drinks his brew and he spits his chew. Deep in the heart of Texas, the TV blares but no one cares. Deep in the heart of Texas, here we go.
Hey y'all, I'm April,
Hi, I'm Caroline.
and we have a new podcast for you. What's it called, Caroline?
Bloody Happy Hour.
It's going to be your new favorite guilty pleasure. We're going to talk about some bloody stuff. Serial killers, true crime,
Rape.
rapists. Why not join us? We'll have a good time.
You literally never know. I don't know what I'm going to say. Bloody Happy Hour. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to the Kid Stays in the Podcast and our discussion of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
So we've gone through the creation of Pinocchio, why he was created, similar things, just done in a much different way. Mm-hmm. But once we start leaving, once he gets out of the house, he tries to go to school. Let's walk us through just another example of how much darker it is and how much what else they're trying to say in this movie versus the other movie. Because in the original Pinocchio, he needs to go to school, right? Mm-hmm. Because he needs to learn how to be a good little boy.
Yes.
In this movie, yeah, like I said, it's a much darker reason why he needs to go to school that kind of gets into some of the themes that the movie's dealing with. You don't want me to throw this to you?
I don't like it. I don't want you to throw it to me. I want you to throw it to yourself. I'm actually going to throw it to you. So I think we should talk about how this movie differs from other Pinocchio movies and how dark it is. So I'm going to throw this to you, Trey.
You don't remember, honestly?
I do remember.
So why don't you just say it?
But I feel like you're going to say it differently, and I want to correct you. So go.
No, I'm not going to go. I've been talking this whole time.
I've been talking also.
This is a joint podcast.
I agree, and I want to make fun of you, so go. I'm sick of you making fun of me. I'm taking control. I'm taking power back.
What's so dumb is that you clearly can't remember what happened.
No, I remember.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're just wasting.
Like I said, I feel like you're going to get it wrong, and I'm going to correct you.
We're wasting the listeners' time by you with all this imbecilic drivel.
Throwing it back to you.
You're such a dingus. You just watched this movie last night. You can't remember this basic part.
I do. Now go back to throwing it.
So, like I said, in the original movie, Geppetto realizes that Pinocchio needs to go to school. He needs to learn his ABCs and his arithmetics and his maths. And they send him off, and it's a fun thing. And then it's all about him being disobedient, right, by not going to school.
Mm-hmm.
In this, the reason that he needs to go to school is because at this point in time now, the fascist government has taken over, and I don't remember if he's an admiral. I don't remember if he's a captain or whatever rank he is, but there is a kind of Gestapo-y like fascist leader, full on Nazi imagery in this. I know that Mussolini wasn't technically a Nazi at this point, but
no.
Lots of Nazi, they were part of the Axis, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, he has the red armband on and everything. So yeah, he basically is like, he is looking at Pinocchio as a potential ultimate soldier.
Yeah.
Like he's a perfect, he can't feel pain, he can't really die, which is not true. He actually can die.
Mm-hmm.
He just comes back alive. But I don't really understand how that works, but he does die. He dies many, many times in this movie.
It's brutal.
But yeah, so they after they do their kind of Heil Hitler salute
Brutal
at the church with the priest, they come to his house at Geppetto's house at night, and they basically say, "Hey, you need to send your son to school so that he can basically learn how to be a good fascist little boy."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, and not be a dissident. So already school is not the good, wholesome place that he needs to go. It is a place that you go to be conformed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a place of, it is going to mold you into something corrupt. And that's already a very different take than you would see almost in anything.
Nothing was more shocking than the whole church heiling Hitler in a cartoon movie. It was just, I mean, I know that it was.
They don't ever say Heil Hitler, just to be clear. They just do the Nazi salute.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a PG movie, man. That's just crazy to me. That's crazy.
I mean, they Heil Hitler and say it in The Sound of Music. That's a PG movie.
Really?
Yeah. It's about World War II.
I know. I was saying, really, it's a PG movie.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, it was just so. And this movie has a lot of dark themes. It's just crazy.
Yeah. At one point, one of the ways that Pinocchio dies is because you could think like, oh, maybe it's like in a funny slapsticky way, like he gets kicked by a bull, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of a funny. An anvil falls on his head.
Nope.
No. At one point, a Nazi shoots him in the face.
It's so brutal. He gets hit by a car.
Yeah, he gets hit by a car.
Literally, his whole body explodes.
We keep calling them Nazis. It's mostly because I'm tired of using the word fascist, and they look like Nazis.
They have the red armband, man.
But whatever. I'm gonna keep saying it, and you can correct me if you want to, but it doesn't matter. Know that we know
that they're not.
But we're just saying that.
Yeah.
But yes, also gets hit by a car driven by that Gestapo guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's just always getting killed by fascists in this movie. Fascism is killing Pinocchio left, right, and center.
Constantly.
So we're going to take a quick detour because I want to make sure we have time to talk about it. And we're kind of bouncing around with this movie, which is fine.
It's Pinocchio.
We haven't mentioned two huge things. One, the animation.
God. Don't even get me started.
Oh, I will get you started.
Oh my goodness.
Start it right up.
You're riling me up. This movie is insane. And you are, well, at least I was, and so were you, constantly like dumbfounded by how much they were able to do purely by stop motion.
And what's the other, there's another word for stop.
Claymation.
It used to be called claymation, but that's like a term that no one uses anymore. Isn't there another term for stop animation?
Stop and goes?
No, whatever. Maybe we just call it stop animation. It's fine.
Do you want to call it something else? You want to make?
I'm just trying. I just thought there was another word for it, and I can't think of it.
Well, you got me all off track. But yeah, there's like things that it was so confusing to me how they were able to do it. What was the shot? You got like actually confused on how they did a shot. It was like towards the beginning.
I can't remember what it was.
It was like they zoomed in on like some like bread and then like turned it around and then they were walking or something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It was absolutely insane. And
Solomon kept insisting that they had to not be using
I
stop
didn't believe
animation.
it. I still don't kind of believe it, if I'm being real. And we watched part of the
Not as much as we could have, but yeah, there's a 40-minute documentary.
30 minutes.
36.
Okay. On the app it says 30 minutes, but on
On the TV, when I paused it, it said 36 minutes.
Okay.
Either way, there's a 36-minute long documentary about the making of the movie, and we watched like the very couple of first minutes of it.
Yeah.
And then somebody made us turn it off, and they did do all those shots.
It was insane. Like, and they did so much with like, because some shots just weren't doable, so they would just greatly increase the size of Pinocchio's head, or not only his head, but it's like his whole body. And like his head, there was one of his heads was like bigger than me.
Yeah,
as
like
a person.
I realized how stupid I just now sounded when I said they really did do all those shots. Well, obviously they're in the movie. I meant without augmenting it with CGI, because it'd be so easy to use CGI to do some of this stuff. You know what I mean? But from what it looks like, I'm not saying they didn't use any computer stuff to smooth out the animation, even though it didn't look like it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they use like forced perspective. They would, like Solomon said, they made, if they needed to do a cool shot where it's like looking over Pinocchio's shoulder at Jiminy Cricket while he's talking, or Jiminy Cricket's on his name, Sebastian J. Cricket.
Yeah.
They would build a Pinocchio head the size of a human body that they would shoot behind.
Yep. And then they also had like teeny tiny baby ant-sized ones.
Right.
That would also like be for like huge, tall, or like to like show the whole landscape or something. I don't know what they were for.
And they needed them to be fully articulated. So they had to build the smallest, itsy bitsy, teeny weeniest little Pinocchio doll or cricket doll that they could still move. You can't see what I'm doing with my finger here if you're not watching us on our YouTube, small. But it's like I'm doing like a half an inch, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They literally had to make fully articulated, like,
they had to move their legs for walking and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly, and arms.
Mind-boggling
So
to me.
it is one of the most stunning animated movies that I've ever seen. And I will say that normally stop animation is not my favorite. I know it's kind of blasphemy to say.
Yeah.
It makes me feel usually creeped out.
Yeah, that's how I usually feel.
So that's why I like The Corpse Bride and I like Nightmare Before Christmas, because they're creepy. So the fact that it makes me feel creepy is fine. Good. But like movies like Chicken Run or Wallace and Gromit, I just can't handle them. They always make me feel unsettled.
Yeah.
This movie's animation is so beautiful and smooth that I didn't feel that way at all.
It felt warm and nice. What was I gonna say?
I mean, warm and nice for a movie where a kid gets shot in the face.
That's
by a Nazi.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I was gonna say, I cannot think of what I was gonna say. I'm really sad.
Well, we only have 5 minutes left, so let's move on really quickly to the performances a little bit. I know it's all voice acting, but a couple of shout outs. Who would you think the standouts are here?
Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor, woo! Absolutely.
He was the cricket. He was amazing. I love him, love him, love him, love him.
I love him. I love the sound of his voice. I wish that I had a cricket that was voiced by Ewan McGregor that lived in my chest.
I want him to read books to me. I want him to put me to sleep.
He's so good that it actually made me sad anytime he wasn't in the movie, because he actually is separated from Pinocchio for a very large portion of the film.
Which is way different than how it usually is done.
Who else would you say was kind of a standout here?
Pinocchio, honestly, I forgot his name was like Gregory Mann or something.
Yeah, he's not somebody I didn't recognize any of his CV.
But he sung a lot because this was kind of a musical.
Yeah, kind of a musical.
Hard to describe. But whenever he sung, he sounded really, really good.
I thought he was great. He brought a very specific type of innocence to the character that I really liked.
Yep, Geppetto was obviously very good.
Yes, I can't remember what that actor's name. Christoph Waltz was in it as I can only think of the people's names from the Disney movie because they changed almost everybody's names with the exception of Geppetto. But anyway, the guy who runs
Pinocchio.
Pinocchio, the guy who runs the evil puppet circus that kidnaps.
His name was like
Pinocchio.
Count
Volton or something.
Dolp or something.
Whatever.
Like
It's Christoph Waltz. He's fantastic. And then Ron Perlman is kind of like the fascist Gestapo whatever leader.
Yeah.
And he's great as always. Oh, and Finn Wolfhard actually was surprisingly good in this.
He was the Gestapo's son.
Yeah, he's like the little fascist boy.
Yeah, little fascist boy.
He's a little fascist boy that is bullying Pinocchio.
But
and just so you know, the kind of bullying that this little fascist boy does early in the movie with Pinocchio is he burns his feet off.
That's true. He's like, you should put your feet close to the fire.
Yes, and then his feet burn off.
Pinocchio loved it. He thought it was a good time.
But yeah, that was Finn Wolfhard, and he actually is doing like a little bit of a like Britishy accent, maybe just like a vaguely European accent, but it sounds good. I thought he did a really good job.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been souring on him, a little bit bored of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like in Stranger Things, he's boring me now, and then in that Ghostbusters movies, I was all bored of him.
Sour.
Seen too much of him.
I don't mind him. He's fine.
But he was really good, and
there's some ladies. I can't think of their names.
Kate Blanchett, but she does like basically just sounds. Because she's the monkey.
Yeah, she was the monkey in this. And then who's the other lady who was...
Tilda Swinton is the quote-unquote blue fairy.
Yeah, blue fairy in quotes.
I think they just call her the spirit forest sprite or something.
Yeah, wood sprite.
But we're almost out of time, but I want to get back to like one of the other themes and the ways that they did this in this movie that just to show how deep it is. And we're not going to have time to get into all the different themes of this movie. But let's go back to the central theme that usually runs through Pinocchio and how different they made it in this. I really want the audience to understand how different of an experience this is.
Yes.
So this is a movie about fathers and sons, but there's actually two sets that you're looking at, right? You have Geppetto and Pinocchio.
Yep.
And then you have the Gestapo guy, the fascist guy, and his son.
That's true. We do.
And they very much parallel them. So at the point where, and this is again going to show people in case we haven't made it very clear how dark this movie is. And I want to, hopefully I'm not dissuading anybody from watching it with their kids. I think you should watch it with your kids. It will make them think it's deep enough. It's a deep movie. You know what I mean? It's still rated PG.
Yeah. It's
not graphically violent, but it is. I mean, it's the kind of things that I think that kids should be watching instead of drivel like, well, I don't want to bash on Disney movies. I like a lot of Disney movies, but the kind of shallow themes of a movie like Ray and the Last Dragon, where it's like trust is important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like way deeper than that. But anyway, in the traditional Pinocchio story, what happens after he leaves like the whatever circus, right? Like, what's the big final lesson that he learns?
The donkeys?
Yeah. That's what he learns. The lesson is the donkeys.
Sorry. Is that what happens after
we have 1 minute for you to get through
the fish?
The donkeys, yes.
Okay, the donkeys.
Okay, I'm gonna have to just speed
Sorry,
through this because you're not being. You said it, the donkeys, yes.
That's what I thought.
The whole last lesson in the other movies, they go to this basically like a pleasure island where they indulge in all of their vices. They get to do anything they want.
Smoke cigars.
Drink, gamble, play video games, stuff them, play additional video games, but stuff their faces with
candy,
food, whatever.
Just fats.
And they turn into jackasses and they sell them off, right? And it's a big lesson, a big morality play. And this, instead of doing that, they go to like a Hitler youth camp. He goes to like a Hitler youth camp. And then through his innocence, he gets this little fascist boy, the one that Finn Wolfhard plays, to become friends with him by teaching him to stand up for what's right and to stand up against his dad and do the right thing no matter what.
Yep.
And they join up together and they win the little fascist Hitler youth camp game. And the dad's all like, "Hey, you can't be teaming up." And then he hands his son a gun and says, "Shoot the puppet in the face."
It does say that.
And then they, get bombs dropped on them.
Yep.
But anyway,
the little fascist boy shoots his dad with a paintball gun.
Yeah, instead, and he does the right thing, and he lives to tell about it.
Yeah.
So
gorgeous.
Anyway, look, we are completely out of time. Honestly, I should have made this a 45-minute podcast because this movie was so good, and we just dipped our toes in the water. But absolutely go see this new Pinocchio movie. I give this movie 98 out of 100 pine cones.
I'm going to give this movie 10 out of 10 varied and sized heads.
God, that was
what?
Very convoluted. All right, thanks everybody. Until next time.
Bye. Follow us on Instagram at The Kid in the Pig and on RogueMediaNetwork.com.
Until next time.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.